Hello and welcome back to What's Next with me, Mike Draper. We have a special guest today that has an interesting background that I really want to dive into. Not many people get to talk to somebody who has been an Olympian, right? So it's a very unique story. She's a very powerhouse of a person, of a woman, of an athlete, of a businesswoman, of just a human being, right? So I want to introduce you guys to Suni.
Hey, such lavish praise. I don't know what to do now.
You just got to be yourself, and the light will shine through. I have no doubt in your capabilities. So yeah, no. So we to give a little backstory for people listening, so Suni and I met at FinCon, which is a finance creators conference in Florida. It was Florida, right? Yeah, it was Florida.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was almost 2 months ago. Yeah, in
so,
Orlando. The time's flown by, huh?
Yeah, I forget. So I forget where it was at, but yeah, Florida. That was an amazing trip. The group of people that we got to hang out with was all, real estate investors, creators, entrepreneurs, people hustlers, people surrounded by business folks. But yeah, tell us a quick little summary of your upbringing and how you got here on this amazing podcast.
Well, my charm got me on my podcast. Thank you. My charm got me on your podcast. Thank you very much. But yeah, so I am a real estate investor. That was what my draw to FinCon was. I'm very interested in personal finance, etc. I also run a personal finance company called Afford Anything. We also have a podcast as well as personal finance content and a real estate investing course. So that was why I ended up going this year on behalf of Afford Anything. And when I am not running my real estate business, not running the personal finance business, there isn't much time left, but I do like to stay active and healthy, and a lot of that is because I spent my previous career, really my first career, playing tennis professionally. So I turned pro at the age of 14. I played professionally for 9 years, traveled the world, dropped out of school after 6th grade, trained all hours of the day and night. And the highlights, the apex of my career was the 2008 Beijing Olympics. So I participated in Beijing, and then I retired at the very, very old age of 23 with a 6th grade education and honestly, no life skills. Nothing. I couldn't do algebra. I could barely open a checking account. It was a very isolated existence and solitary existence where you reach excellence because you are the master of a single trade. You know literally nothing else. So coming out of that was very interesting. But fast forward, I retired in 2009. So fast forward to 2022. I was able to get an undergraduate degree from one of the best business and entrepreneurial programs in the country. I graduated with honors, and then I also got my master's in business from Villanova University. So it's been just kind of me trying to excel in every area that I can and help others along the way.
I love that. It's a great story, and we've dove into it, deeper when we were at FinCon together. But one thing I didn't ask when we were in person that I would love to see your insight on. So you kind of talked about, people mastering their craft, becoming elite in this one area, just super hyper focused is kind of what you were referencing around. And I want to ask, what did it take to become the top of your game, right? And so I want to know the mindset you had, the habits you maybe had, the routine. What did you sacrifice to become elite in your craft, which was tennis?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because when you move away from a space that supports that sort of intense focus, everyone labels you as crazy.
Yes.
And so I'm just going to put that out there because it is that kind of crazy, intense focus where honestly nothing else matters. So in order to reach that level of mastery in my sport, I didn't go to school. I didn't have friends. I was giving up sleepovers. Like you have a daughter, Ellie, 8. Mm-hmm. At 8, I wasn't going to any sleepovers. I was missing class. I was playing tournaments every weekend, training every day after school. There was no child there. There was no human there. There was no person there. There was only the athlete. And you end up sacrificing everything, basically, in pursuit of that singular goal. And I would say it's not a very mentally healthy existence. There's not very much perspective. But the upside to that is that any other endeavor that you take on, when you have to make sacrifices and you have to work hard, that is nothing compared to the sacrifices and the work that have already been put in another field at a much younger age, etc. So yeah, it's really just about intensely focusing on that one thing and thinking about, okay, what do I need to get to that next level? What is the one thing in that moment that will get me to where I want to go? And then having the strategic plan to figure out what the next steps are, and then staying extremely focused on that execution. You do not veer. You stay focused on that one thing, and that is all that matters.
Yeah. Were there any distractions that, I mean, this path started, you said, when you were about 8, is that right? Well, 6th grade is when you said you went full time.
Yeah, but even before that, I was training 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day whenever I could. So when I was in 5th grade, I started at a special private school where I would go to school only for 3 hours a day, or 4 hours a day, and then I would train the rest of the day. So I forgot the original question.
No, it's okay. But no, it's good. So when in that time, you're 5th grade, you now switched over to private school, and you're, half school, half training.
Training, yeah.
I assume you loved the sport, right?
Right. That's an excellent question. Love is an interesting thing.
This is great.
Concept. which very much ties into like your other.
At one point, you loved the sport, right?
I mean, at one point I did, and there are aspects of the sport that I probably still love, like the very simple act of striking the tennis ball. Like that is, in its purest form, the piece that I loved. However, I believe to reach excellence, and maybe this is why I ended up burning out, retiring early, it also kind of veered into obsession. It wasn't just love, it was a need. It was something I needed to have. It was something that was my identity. It was critical for me as a person to have that, like air, which sounds psychotic.
No, I recognize themes and patterns, right, in anything I do, and I try to find patterns. And that's exactly why I'm asking these questions, is I like to talk to people who have mastered their craft, are elite in their thing, right? Whether it's business, running a business, starting a business, industries within each sector, like athletes, everything. I want to understand how and why they tick the way they tick and operate the way they do, and how they reach such a level. And so it's kind of the common theme that I see.
You're talking about patterns. Yeah, you're talking about patterns. I can draw those out for you, at least like from my life. So moving from 6th grade dropout to someone who graduated with honors from some of the best programs in the country, to someone who is an entrepreneur and has their own business in their mid-30s, along with running one of the largest personal finance brands in the space. The things that I learned from tennis, that single mindedness, the wanting to make it the best it can be, that is what translated. The work, the apathetic don't survive. The apathetic don't get rewarded. You have to know why you want things, and then you have to be able to channel that and fuel that, because there are days when you're not going to want it. Obviously, we're all human. Energy wanes, mentalities wane. We all get tired, but it's about knowing what makes you tick and using that to propel yourself when it doesn't happen naturally.
Was your target the Olympics?
It actually was not. In our sport, I mean, Olympics is huge, and it sounds a little bratty to say, but that's not something that the Olympics is not something that I grew up, or anybody in like my generation grew up dreaming about.
It's kind of like the NBA, kind of like they don't.
Oh yeah.
They don't dream of, well, this is not from my experience, but
from my time as an NBA player.
From what I see through documentaries and through interviews and podcasts, that, people who are in the NBA, they didn't aspire to be on the U.S. Olympic team or the whatever Olympic team. They aspired to be in the NBA. So what is the equivalent, I suppose, what was your target? What was pushing you or pulling you so hard?
I wanted to win every slam. I wanted to be at Roland Garros. I wanted to play at Wimbledon. I wanted to win all these events. I wanted to hold the trophies. I wanted to play on center court. I wanted the lights and the attention and the money and just being excellent. Like you learn to hone in on that as an athlete when you're young. The purity of being just the absolute best. That is what I wanted, and I wanted everything that went with it.
I love that. And so then I do recognize that. So after your tennis career, you then go on to finish your schooling at first, and then you go on to a top, business school, and then to a top MBA program. I'm sensing a pattern here, Suni, of trying to do that. We don't settle. We sacrifice. Because I'm sure those things were difficult to do, and you had to have pretty immense focus in those programs.
Especially when you don't know algebra or geometry. Like, think about 6th grade math. I took earth science. Like, I took earth science. That was like basically all I remember.
I hear. Yeah, that's good. And so I hear, Olympic athlete, and then I hear top business school, top MBA program, and then I hear where you're at right now, Afford Anything, which is can you tell us a little bit more about Afford Anything and what that's about? I know about it, but could you explain a little bit more?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. I was actually a fangirl long before I joined the company. When I got on my personal finance journey about 3 years into like my corporate career, 3 years after I left undergrad, Afford Anything was one of the first brands that I found. And so there are a couple different facets to this. We have a weekly podcast that is aired with once a month bonus episode on real estate investing, long distance real estate investing, which I co-host. The other podcast episodes are a blend of personal finance topics, as well as I think, like, I described it as metacognition, thinking about how you think and how others would think to balance the trade-offs in life to get to where one would ultimately want to go. Because at the end of the day, our resources are all finite: our time, our energy, our money. And so we always are faced with different decisions to make in order to optimize that and live the life that is most aligned with our values and our needs. So that's kind of like the podcast in a nutshell. And then we also have a real estate investing course. So firmly believe in the power of investing in real estate and want to help those who want to take those steps. And then there's like every personal finance platform, there are additional like free content things that are generated, put out through like Instagram, through blogging, through other videos, through mass media outlets. Our founder was actually just on Netflix. So Get Smart with Money was aired on Netflix right before FinCon. So that was a documentary that followed for influential personal finance folks, advisors, kind of, but folks, and where they advise a single individual on their financial journey. So that's kind of what Afford Anything is about. Yeah.
So what got you from tennis to why business? So business and MBA, and then now a personal finance company who invests in real estate. You mentioned, as far as one of your targets in tennis was Wimbledon, these big platforms. Money was one of the things you mentioned, which I think is a total good target, because that helps, money helps in so many different aspects of life with, it's a tool. And so why business? Why personal finance and Afford Anything? Why leading that way? I'm just trying to get into the mind of someone who's mastered their craft and why they're choosing and deciding what's next for them, and how you think, not they. I want your story. Why business? Why Afford Anything?
Yeah, so my professional path has changed a couple times. I am a firm believer in growth mindsets and pivoting. Who we are at 22 is not who we'll be at 26, is not who we'll be at 28. And it's really important to monitor those changes and understand what is going to drive you and what's going to make you happy, and be okay with making changes or even starting over. I started over multiple times, and so that was the reason. Like I kind of kept changing because I felt unsettled. I was never in the path that brought me fulfillment, even though I thought prior to taking the step that step would. Example, part of the reason that I was monetarily driven, like as an athlete as well, was because I grew up poor. My parents were Indian immigrants. They struggled. Tennis is a sport for the affluent. I ended up getting a lot for free because I was good. But I did not want to have to deal with all of the monetary struggles that I saw my parents deal with. And then as an athlete, there are like striations within the sport that have to do with like where you're ranked. And depending on where you're ranked, you can either make huge, massive money, or you're barely going to be able to feed yourself. And even though I was successful and ranked globally at the top of my sport, I was struggling to feed myself. And I was doing this without any family support. So by the time I retired at 23, I was like, okay, so I've done this for all these years. I don't have much to show for it monetarily. And I really struggled financially. There were times when I didn't know where my next meal was coming from. Once when I was, I think 20, I booked a flight to India for a tournament. I had to go. I didn't have money to come home. I knew I had to win those matches in order to book a flight home. There was a tournament I went to in LA. I couldn't afford housing. I couldn't afford transportation. So I took 2.5-hour bus rides through some of the roughest sections of LA just to get to the site there and back until I could get a paycheck. And I was tired of living that life. I understood I was doing it at the time to further myself and my dream, the thing that I had sacrificed so much of my life to. But once that was done, I was like, okay, it's time to make something else of yourself. And we are not doing that by scraping for pennies and dimes. While I was on tour, I did manage the business aspects of my career. So at 19, I was doing the logistics. I was doing the financial management. I was working with my management company to schedule all of the PR, et cetera, et cetera. I was a business. I was a brand. And I loved that. There were times when I loved that more than the sport itself. And so I knew upon retiring that I wanted to do something business related, but that is like such a big catch-all. Like, what does that even mean? Hello, you know?
Right. No, I hear you.
So I ended up focusing on finance because people in finance made money, and I was tired of being hungry and poor and broke.
Yeah. No, it's a good reasons.
And so I chose finance. I got good grades, got into the corporate world, started working. Like my first job was for a multinational defense contractor in their leadership development program within their finance organization. The next step that led me to real estate was realizing that I did not want all of my eggs in the basket of one person who sat in an office who'd probably never left their states and was telling me my value based upon what they had heard through the grapevine, combined with what I did, but then also their own biases. So when I say that, that is because I had some negative experiences where I found out that I wasn't earning as much for reasons that did not make sense, like earning as much as peers for reasons that did not make sense. And that really hit home because I realized so many of the options that we have in life, they are controlled by how much money we have. And so this person was going to be having an outsized influence on my life because of whatever reasons that I could not understand, and therefore I could not influence. So that's when I was like, okay, like, yeah, we're going to keep working, but we're also going to find another way to influence our future, because I'll be damned if I'm going to let this person tell me what I can and can't do in many parts of my life. So I started looking into personal finance, started couponing, started doing this, started doing that. Like, it was all great, but there was all a ceiling, you know, and it wasn't it was a lot of time, and it wasn't going to, I could only save so much. The real lever to pull was my income level, and that would my income lever. And so being able to do that was what was going to have a better impact on my life. And then that's when I found real estate investing and the ability to build a business that would provide me residual income over time.
Yeah, no, I follow that. I totally understand that. And so that makes me think of, in part of your story, you were saying, you know, you decided to leave the tennis world and now you wanted to shift and find your new thing, which ended up being business, personal finance, and real estate, and where you're at today. What, if you recall, what was going through your mind in that time of, you're at the Beijing Olympics, you just finished those, and now you're thinking, do I want to keep doing this or do I want to move on? What was going through your mind, and what made you move on and like let go of tennis?
That's a good question.
I think it applies to a lot of, I asked the question because I'll give you some time to think about it, but I asked the question because, you know, this, although it's not directly applicable to everybody as far as leaving the Beijing Olympics from tennis career to something new, but like the idea of leaving something you've worked so hard and sacrificed so many things for, over an extended period of time, not just like a 2 month, like, oh, I sacrificed 2 weekends out with friends to do this thing. Like, it's still sacrifice and it's not to be ignored, but like yours was such a long extended period of time, 5th, 6th grade, essentially, or earlier, to 23 years old. And that's, 10, 12, 13 plus years of dedication. You dropped out of school. You were not, you know what I mean? Like, didn't graduate high school at the time. And so you were just, what made you let all that go?
So I think I can answer this from two perspectives. One is the very personal perspective, where the details probably won't relate, but I think I can like
answer it however you want.
Bring it up to a higher level where it is more relatable. So I decided to walk away because I had all these dreams and I had a vision for my future. I knew what I wanted out of the sport. And at the end of 2008, early 2009, I made the decision to walk away because I knew that I needed additional resources in order to achieve my potential. So I didn't have money. I didn't have family. I was knocking on the door to basically the next step where I could make big money, but I needed a coach. I needed trainers. I needed help. I couldn't just be I wasn't even a woman. I was like a one kid show, just like running around,
Yeah.
And that was the time of the recession. So where was the money going to come from? Typically companies would sponsor an athlete, but that's a choice dependent on discretionary income. In 2008, 2009, companies were struggling. They didn't have that discretionary income. So I knew that my path was either to stick it out and hope that in 3 or 4 years my experience would catch up and then I could make that break, or I could leave. Because if I stuck around, I knew it was still an if, but I'd be settling for less than my potential until my experience level caught up and like kind of like pushed me over that hump. That's really what I felt like. And to kind of like zoom it back out, I think what went through my head and what has pushed me through various pivots in my life, whether that was leaving the sport, whether that was leaving the corporate world, whether that was starting a real estate business after saving every penny for 2-3 years. It was me looking at my future and saying, if I continue on this path, is that going to give me the life that I want? The first set of questions that would follow that would be, what do I need to do in order to live the life that I want?
After a monumental moment in your super focused thing that you want to knock out, right? So tennis, trying to get to the elite, the top, the Wimbledon, the Olympics, everything, like the top of the field. And you get to a place where you're like at the top, essentially at the top, right there with everybody at the Beijing Olympics. You finish that endeavor and you come back and you kind of reevaluate, like, hey, what's going on? What do I like? What do I not like? What was my original target? And is that still my current target, right, is what I'm hearing. And so you did what I think people need to do more of, or at least the ones that I hear that are struggling, is to know your target. Why is it your target? Really define it as best and as like tactically
explicitly.
Yeah.
You need to know the details.
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
What does that look like? What does that feel like?
Mm-hmm. And then once you define it, that's like step one. You define what do you want, right? And what you want can change, and that's totally fine. But it has to be tactile, like you just said, the details. Once you have like the details of what you want or close to it, what is the next step? Like, what is step number one? And take the action is what I'm assuming you did, since you're sitting here, right?
Telling you about my life.
But it seems so simple when you say it out loud, but so many people just, myself included, it happens.
Overwhelming. It's overwhelming. If you look at it from, okay, I need to go from point A to point B, it is so overwhelming. Can you imagine? Like, I was a 6th grade dropout trying to go to college. What? Like, talk about, I didn't know the first thing about college. Anytime you have a big goal or you want to make a big change, the steps can be overwhelming. So it's just kind of like breaking it down into smaller pieces and just like one step at a time and keep breathing.
Absolutely. Did you do it on your own? The change from tennis?
No man or woman is an island. I had friends who provided emotional support. I had a mentor who kind of kicked me in the butt when I needed it. It was like, you need to take that step when I was maybe dragging my feet or a little scared. But other than that, I pretty much, most of it was,
Yeah. I asked that because a lot of people seem to be trying to tackle these monumental tasks or shifts in their life, whether it's relationships, business, whatever, on their own, right? And so the initial like understanding what you're going for, why you're going for it, absolutely is a you thing. Like, you must understand what you're going for, why do you want it, or what do you want, define it, and then know it. Okay, step one, I need to do this and that. Now, what resources do I need? Do I need money? Do I need support? Do I need another person? Do I need, like logistically, how do you accomplish step one, right? And so for you, it sounded like it was, you could do most of it on your own. Having that support system of friends, the mentor, some people to lean on for like that emotional support was part of it.
Critical, yeah.
It's critical. It's critical. What, someone, I guess, what's some advice you would give someone who is at that point? They realize. So, like, I guess what advice would you give yourself back in 2009, January of 2009? So after
buy
the Olympics,
real estate.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Forget everything else. Just buy houses. Call it a day. You can work at McDonald's. It does not matter. Just like save your money, buy real estate.
Yep, I would agree. But beyond logistically financial moves, mindset. What would you tell 2009 Suni as far as mindsets to take or steps to take to get you moving in the direction you want to go quicker or more smoothly? What would you tell yourself?
I think what has been hardest for me and what I see slowing other people down is dealing with the emotional burden of taking those steps. Because that, like, the emotional burden, the anxiety, what do I do? Can I do it? The analysis paralysis, that is emotion-based. That's fear. It's dealing with all of the emotions that come from fear as the baseline. That can also be insecurity. And while those emotions are telling, it is important to listen to them because they have information to impart. The biggest thing is to approach it logically, to approach it as a series of steps. And a lot of times you're afraid because you don't know. What is the antidote to not knowing? It is knowing. How do you get to know something? You educate yourself. So just give yourself the grace, allow yourself to feel it, and then figure out what do you need to know to get to where you need to be. All of the information is available to us. It's just knowing what to look at, focusing on that, and allowing that to empower yourself.
That's such a good line you had. Most of the fear, I agree, it's the unknown. When I look at myself and times in my past where I'm scared to move forward with something, regardless of the topic, it's the fear for me, it's of the unknown. Like, I don't know what to expect. Am I prepared? And you said it so brilliantly. The antidote to fear of the unknown is to, I can't think of the words you said exactly, but like, it's to figure out the unknown. Once you know the unknown, now the fear is gone, right? And so how do you do that? You break it down so tactically, like, okay, why do I not want to move forward? Why do I have this anxiety feeling? Well, actually, I'm scared of not knowing how to do this step, or I don't know how to go from step 1 to step 10, but I haven't even solved step numbers 1 and 2. Like, why am I scared of 7, 8, and 9 when I haven't even solved number 1 and 2 over here? So it provides focus is what I'm really getting at here. Focusing on the correct problem at the correct time, in learning or finding where to learn the information.
And that's a really important piece too. You just said focusing on the correct problem at the correct time.
Yeah.
So if you're at step A, don't focus on the problem you're going to hit at step 10.
Right.
Right? So if you don't know, I'm trying to stay away from real estate investing. I'm trying to
lean into it. I'm all about real estate investing.
So
everyone should do
it. If you are wanting to buy your first property out of state, and you're like, I just want residual income. I want to put someone in it who will pay me rent, and that'll cover my mortgage, and I'll have some money left over. That's all I want to do. And you haven't bought your first one yet. You shouldn't be asking yourself, how am I going to buy properties 9 and 10? And how did those taxes work?
Right. That's very much me. Like 0 to 100.
I mean, that's almost everybody.
If I have a multifamily syndication and I have all these people in there, and I want to do a waterfall step down leveraging of the finance.
I literally want to.
So your advice is
focus on the problem at hand, and then you know what? Life works out. You will figure it out. You get smarter as you keep taking steps, and that problem that was a problem might not be a problem anymore once you get there. But if you sit here on like step A and just keep thinking about step 10, I'm using different numbering mechanisms.
I'm tracking.
I mean, you might never get there. The most important thing is to make progress and figure out where you are and how to get from where you are to the next step is the most critical piece to figure out.
Yeah, trust yourself that you'll be able to solve steps 3 once you get there. You might not know how to solve it now, but trust your abilities in solving them once you get there. Or Z or D or whatever, absolutely. So that's the advice you would give to someone who's kind of stuck in a rut is focus, understand your problem, understand your why, like what your target is, define it as deeply as possible, and then just solve steps 1 and then step 2 and just go to each thing. So I want to end this with, what are you doing now? Like, what is next for Suni? Where are you going? What are we going to see you doing in 12, 24, 36 months? Let's throw it out there in the air. If you say it, it has to happen.
This is it's kind of scary. I've never been one to say it before I do it. And I think you and I talked, today we're doing it. Or at least talk about it publicly. I'll obsess about it with friends, like a complete nut job. But I want to launch another business. So I currently run my real estate business and I run Afford Anything. So I'm currently running 2 businesses, which is like absolute chaos. But I recently, and so this is the first step that I did, I realized I could not grow or do what fulfills me while I had the inundation of 2 growing businesses. So I actually just hired my first part-time employee to start systemizing my operations. And we talked about this a little bit at FinCon. Yeah. So I am doing that so that can be taken off my plate, and I want to launch a public speaking business next year because I think I can help people. That sounds so arrogant saying that.
No, it's not arrogant at all. It's just talking to people, but on different stages, right? You're doing it right here on a podcast. It's just there's no one here in front of us. Whenever someone posts a video on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, anywhere, they're on a platform, right? It's just this platform that you're talking about is physical stages with people in a room. I know, right? It's a lot. Have you applied anywhere to speak yet?
No, not yet, because I need to actually get this. I need to get my real estate in a place where it can keep running. And because if things pop up with real estate, then that needs to be taken care of first. And that's going to negatively impact my ability to prepare for a gig, for example. So I need that to be laying flat and to be optimized. And I should be able to get that done by the end of the year and then start like marketing and doing what I need to do for the speaking business.
What is the top, last question, what is the top stage you would want to speak on? Speak it now. TED. I want a TED Talk.
TED Talk. I think my voice just broke. I'm screaming into the microphone. No one's ever going to hire me after hearing this.
No, no, do not say that. They will absolutely want to hire you. Okay. This is exactly how it works.
All right.
TEDx people who are listening to this, I don't know who coordinates that. Write it down now. Put it in your notes for quarter 1 of 23. Book it. Sunny's ready. All right. You got any plugs you want to give? How can people find you? How can people find you on the podcast for Afford Anything? What's the name? Website?
Yeah. So affordanything.com. That can be, that's like our website. And then our shows can be downloaded anywhere you download podcasts, Apple, Spotify, you name it. Personally, I can be found on Instagram. That's probably the best way to reach me. My website is currently down because I'm updating it for the speaking page. So
is the page going to change? Because this will be on podcast for quite some time. So if the website domain is the same, you can go ahead and say it. If it's going to change, it's fine.
Okay, sure. No, the website domain is going to be the same. It is Griffix Property Group, GRIFFIX, propertygroup.com. And it'll probably be back up and updated in the new year / the end of 2022. But yes, the best way to reach me is probably through IG, SUNI, Suni_Rao_. So.
Boom. There we go. I love that. And if you guys want to get any more information on what I have going on, my website is MikeRDraper.com. That's my first name and my last name, Mike Draper, with the letter R in between those for my middle initial. Love it. Thanks for being on here. I'm excited to see you on some stages. I want to see what else you put your mind to and sacrifice everything else in your life to focus on one
we're
thing.
trying to be more balanced, but yes.
Absolutely. But it's so fun to see the glory of just hammering one thing and becoming the master of your craft and all the doors it opens up that you didn't even know existed. It's part of the fun, right? But awesome. Well, again, I thank you, and I will see you at the next conference, maybe.
We'll see.
We'll see. All right. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me.